One love to the humble, one love to the humble, one love to the humble. May grace and peace be multiplied unto you. Hey, listen up, man. I'm gonna talk about trap music. Trap music came out of Atlanta. But before we get into that, I'm gonna say this. You gotta ask yourself, what is hip hop? Like, what is hip hop? Hip hop is strictly from the black culture. It's a creation that black people created, right? And it started way back in the 70s. Hip hop went way back to the 70s. Anybody that was born in the 70s, you pretty much the same age as hip hop is. I think I can't remember the year, but maybe a few years ago, hip hop hit its 50th anniversary. 50 years is not long at all. It's a short period of time. You know somebody right now that's 50 years old. Some of you are 50 years old. Some of you are older than 50 years old. But that just shows you how short a time hip hop has been around. And is most of us who are most people that's 50 or right at 50 or over 50, you've seen hip hop. And if you like the same age as hip hop, you grew up in that era. You grew up when hip hop was growing itself. You grew up watching it grow. You know what I'm saying? So you seen all the different phases of it. You know what it really is because you was there watching it develop. You know what I'm saying? When people were doing graffiti, when it was breakdancing, when it was turntables, scratching, all of that was hip hop. You know what I mean? That was how it all began. And it was rhyming words together. And they just put the title on it, hip hop. Because you remember that song, hip hop, hibbit to hip hop. You know what I'm talking about? That's the beginning of hip hop. And it was during that time when it first came out, it was more about the hip hop was more about the it was more fun. It was fun music, right? That they did not think was gonna last. They didn't think hip hop would last. So it started in the 70s and then it became like more popular in the black hoods. It wasn't mainstream like today. It wasn't about jewelry. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about any of that during that time. It was just getting his feet on the ground running at the time. It was more like just fun music. You know what I mean? People rapping about things they were doing. And then you had a group like called oh man, I hate I even started saying that because now I can't remember the name of the group. I'm sorry. I apologize. I should have put that together before I even started this video, and I do apologize for that. But anyway, they started talking about real things that's happening in the streets. The song was called The Message. And if you remember that group that did that song called The Message, put the name of it in the comments if you don't mind. But it started with The Message, right? That's when from I remember when things started to change as far as what people were talking about in hip hop. That's when I noticed it. And then you had other groups come out like Fat Boys. You had Fresh Prince. You know what I'm saying? Will Smith came out with the Fresh Prince. He was doing music back then. He was rapping. He was doing his thing. He had songs on his album like Nightmare on My Street. It was I forgot the name of the song now, but it was referencing the Freddy Krueger movies that was coming out, just started coming out back in the 80s. And then you had parents just don't understand. It was fun music, because we was kids at the time, and parents just didn't understand, all that kind of stuff, and it was really, really, really good. Then we had Salt and Pepper came out, LL Cool J came out in the '80s. We had Big Daddy Kane. We steady progressing forward with the flows. People were getting more technical with the skill. It was getting better and better. And not only was it getting better and better, it was catching some steam. Or at the time, it was still basically underground. Everybody knew who they were, and then they started getting some play on TV. Now back then, there was no BET. We didn't have BET growing up, and rap music at that time was not gonna get played on the mainstream white TV stations. Just wasn't gonna happen. Not that it was anything bad with what they were doing, but it wasn't a lane for rap music at that time. It wasn't a lane. So they were still trying to figure out what this is and how do we promote this stuff. We don't even know what this is at that time, right? So they then we had MTV, Yo MTV Raps came out. So there was like a segment with Fab Five Freddy, with I think it was Fab Five Freddy, where he started putting this type of music on, where he was interviewing rappers and stuff like that. And you probably seen the episode where he was interviewing NWA on the back of this truck riding around, I believe it was Compton. But now we're getting into it's getting more technical. Then we had a long stretch. Oh, I forgot. We had Rakim came out at the same time. Now Rakim changed the nobody was rapping like Rakim. At that time, Rakim was considered like Michael Jordan. Even though during that time Michael Jordan hadn't became Michael Jordan yet, he was on his way. But Rakim was the new sound that nobody had ever heard of Rakim before. The way he was rhyming, he was all the five percenters. You know, the nation of the gods and the earth was the way he was the language he was using in his rhymes we had never heard. Well, unless you was involved in that or from New York, you was close around it, you hadn't heard nothing like that before. And it was different. And everybody was like, oh man, who is this? And, we still had Karis, one, he was hot. A lot of things was going on in the 80s with this rap. Everybody was stamping their styles, and you couldn't bite nobody's style. Like today, everybody sound the same. Back then, you could not sound the same. Everybody had to have their own cadence, their own flow, their own style. If you was caught doing another sound like somebody else, you might as well not even put a record out because nobody was gonna buy a record that sounded like somebody else. You know what I'm saying? It just was not going to happen. So kept moving forward, still progressing. We got Yo MTV Raps. Then we end up getting, then the 90s come along. There's a new style, a new type of rap coming out. But New York had it on lock. Not gonna lie. New York was running the show with the rap. They had all the artists coming out that could rhyme. Now everywhere else had artists too, but New York was like the mecca of hip hop during that time. And then it was California was starting to get on the map because NWA had started at the time. Then you had NWA with Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Easy E, all of them. Then they had a split. Of course, you seen the movie, right? But we didn't. The movie just showing y'all what we saw real time. We was right there watching this happen in real time while y'all was watching it. Most of the young people today see the movie. They don't get the satisfaction of what it was like to watch that happen in real time. Okay, then you had Snoop came out. They dropped the Chronic album. That Chronic album we had never heard nothing like that before. That was something else new. Like, whoa, what is this? It was something new that they was doing. We had Wu Tang. You had Tupac. Tupac wasn't really doing. He wasn't the Tupac right now. At this time, he was still coming up too. But he was. We noticed him, but he wasn't the one though. It was more like Wu Tang. No, no, no. I got ahead of myself. During that time, like the early '90s, it wasn't people like Tupac wasn't really booming like that at that time. He was doing music, but it wasn't hitting like he started hitting later on in the later part of the '90s. He started hitting harder. But at that time, he was still doing what he was doing, but it wasn't the Tupac. So all that was going on, but the music consistently changing. It was still. Then we got into the '90s. It became more about emancipation. I saw a book that I read from this. I was looking at this book, this paper. This guy from Slovenia, he wrote about trap music. In that book, I wish I could tell you the name of it, but in that book, he said he called it emancipatory potential. That's what he called it. If you go, maybe I get the description and put the description in the put the book in the description, and you can check. You can go look at that paper he wrote. Not a book, it's a paper, but he was talking about emancipatory potential. That's the word. That's the term he used when he was saying what rap music had, what it had in the '90s. meaning like it was freeing, groups that's like oppressed groups was using hip hop to speak on um their situation, bring light to their position, and use it to get from up under oppression and things like that. But that's what it was in the '90s. It was more about power, empowering black people. Songs that they were making back then, uh like now it was NWA had just started making that gangster rap, but we didn't really. It was hot, but it really wasn't like it wasn't Trump in New York just yet. So we had Public Enemy was still rocking, doing their thing, because they were rocking from the '80s all the way up to the '90s. So anyway, the '90s was more empowering. You know what I'm saying? Early '90s, everybody rocking the X hats, had the African medallions. That's what all the kids in school, all the boys in school, that was our thing. We wasn't we was like all about the unity, all about power. You know, that's what they was rapping about. So we copied that in our lives because that's what they was telling us. That's why when we tell y'all today that music right there is direct reflection of what's going on in our black community, we know this because we seen it happen already. So when people tell us like, "Oh no, that don't mean nothing. It's just music," you a liar. Because we know what that music did for us before gangster rap hit the scene. When they was rapping empowering music and they was rapping all of that, we was more about unity, standing up for stuff, black pride, African medallions, X hats, anything African, trying to be like X Clan. If you don't know who X Clan is, go look them up. But anyway, that's what we was doing at the time. You know, Farrakhan was really hot. They had using his looping his voice on a lot of the music. You know what I'm saying? So we going into the '90s, everything's looking good still. I mean, Tupac came out. I don't consider what Tupac was doing gangster rap because that ain't who. That's not Tupac. Wasn't no, to me, he wasn't no gangster. I don't know. They make him look like that today. I ain't never think he was no gangster. He had some hard music, but as far as being a gangster, I ain't never considered him no gangster because that ain't the Tupac I know, and I don't think anybody my age or close to my age would agree with me if you was alive during that time and you saw Tupac and you saw like not no clips. I'm talking about you actually get to see what was going on during that time. We looking in retrospect after they already painted the picture, but at the time he was becoming who he was, and that didn't look like no gangster to me at that time. It just didn't seem like it. Now he was about the struggle, but as far as calling him a gangster, I don't know about that. Maybe because he was on death row, it made people feel like he was a gangster, but that wasn't no gangster at all to me. His music was hard. He was about the struggle, but gangster, I wouldn't say that. That's a stretch. But anyway, so you move into the '90s, everything's still going good. Now doing from 90 from 97, 97 I was in Germany. So I was all '90s I was in the States. But like the last 3 years of the '90s, I was overseas. So but the first time I heard something from the South, other than Outkast, because Outkast came out before I was out of high school, but they wasn't really. They was doing good music. The type of music Outkast make. They ain't really on that crazy. They just make good quality music. But besides Outkast, I don't really remember if I heard anybody else from the South, from Atlanta. If I did, I didn't know they was from Atlanta. But then you move into oh yeah, I was in Germany. So then I heard this group, this guy, one of the guys was playing this song. This guy, he had a unique voice, and I had never heard nothing like that. And he wasn't like no lyrical. He wasn't lyrical like that. He was putting words together, making them rhyme. But it wasn't about that. It was about the way he was doing it. It wasn't nothing like, oh, he doing this and doing that. It wasn't like that. It was just the way his voice and the way he was doing it and how he put his flow together, and it made it make up for the fact that he had no lyrical skill. And this is not a diss to him. This is just saying that was just his style. But it was Pastor Troy. And I had never heard nothing like that. And that was that song, um, Ain't no more playing GA. What's up, Big Mouth? You know what I'm talking about? That song. And that was the first time I heard something like that. And then the next person I heard and I was still over there. Another guy I knew. He had an album. He had a song he was playing. It was Who You With? Who You With? Who You With? Get Crunk. Who You With? And that was Lil Jon's first song that I ever heard Lil Jon. Now that was way back in the late '90s, going into the 2000s. That song, and then by this time I'm it's like 2001, I believe, and I'm on my way back to the States. And then I heard this song from a guy named P.D. Pablo, but he wasn't from Atlanta. He's from North Carolina. But I heard that, and because over there you don't get all of the stuff that they get here in the States when you're overseas. Well, they might now, but back then it wasn't like that because we ain't had the way things set up now is not like it was back then. Everything was still separated back then. We ain't had a World Wide Web connecting us together like we do today. And so I get back to the States, and then I start hearing Atlanta more songs. Atlanta will start to pick up steam. So now you got Lil Jon, Pastor Troy, and all these other artists coming out of Atlanta. They still hadn't really got crazy yet. Now Lil Jon had a different thing going on. He wasn't really no rapper. He was more like a DJ, but it was just the way he did his stuff. He was making songs with just chants on them. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't really like him rapping or doing that like that. But then he kept amping up. So then now New York is falling down and Atlanta is going up. You see what I'm saying? Atlanta started to take the throne. California wasn't really doing that. And I mean, they still had Dr. Dre. He still was doing their thing, but they wasn't competing with Atlanta at the time. Atlanta was taking over. And it pretty much got to the point where nobody else was doing anything. It was all about Atlanta. And I think Atlanta had the longest run in hip hop ever. I don't think nobody else had a longer run than Atlanta. Atlanta had a good almost 30-year run and counting. Still to this day, they still got it, as far as I know. But anyway, then something came, you getting into the mid 2000s. I mean, not, oh my God, not the mid 2000s. You getting into like 2005, somewhere around there. And I'm like, they started coming out with this new stuff. It's like Lil Jeezy, Boys in the Hood. Then they started calling it trap music with Gucci Mane and people like that, T.I., Bone Crusher. All of them started coming out. And they call it trap music. Now that's when everything started to shift. Because what they was doing was not like about empowering. It wasn't about lifting the race. It was about degradation. That's when it all began to go downhill, as far as I'm concerned. Because now you got a new style of music coming in that's not about the uplifting. It's not about the community. It's about partying. It's about women stripping, women shaking they whatever. It's about that. Strip club music, drug dealer music. That's what it became. Now once it be yeah, drug dealer music and strip club music. So then when that happened, then you got Florida coming out, Rick Ross, like 2005, 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Rick Ross came out, and then they doing drug dealer music, strip club music, Yee Yang Twins. Y'all know what I'm talking about. As far as I'm concerned, that was the end of anything positive with rap. And it's been going that way ever since. And you look around and you see the babies they done birthed from that time to now. You see all their children still making music. And it's nothing but degrading. And then you get into then they added in drill music. I'm not sure. I don't think drill music was new. I think it had been out, but it just didn't have a place. But they found a way to get that into the music scene as well. Now you look at what's going on all around. The music is a direct. The music influenced the culture. So music is culture. So if the music is bad, when I say bad, I mean the songs may sound good, but it's what they saying is what the problem is how it's influencing the community because people are acting it out, and that's what makes it bad. That's what takes it down, and so um, it's hard to go against music. It's hard to go against it because young minds like music, and they're gonna listen to it, and it's not gonna be anything but making them do the wrong thing. It has now become a psyop. It's a psychological warfare. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. That's what it is now. Now they only, it used to be a balance. At least they had, if you had this, you had something to counter it. It was always a counter. There's no counter to anything anymore. It's just one thing that they're pushing. There are plenty of rappers out there that rap about other things that cannot get a record deal because it don't fit in line with what they promote. But you notice, you can go back and look at, if you create a chart and you put it side by side, as the worse the more gangster the rap became, the crime went right alongside it. It rose together. You see in a chart where you see where something starts, then it goes up, inclines, go up, incline. Well, the crime rate is gonna go up right with that type of music because it's a direct relation. Now, there's other variables that's got to go into it, but ultimately, that's a marker that you can use to see what's going on inside the community. And now we have women that don't really care. You add in the women's empowerment, feminism, and all that along right alongside with this, you got a big problem on your hands because they're getting reinforced continuously, and people don't really realize that they're being brainwashed. This music is brainwashing the kids. It's brainwashing everybody, but you can't talk about it because it makes people upset. And when people get upset about something, they defend it because they don't see it like you see it. They don't know they're being brainwashed. They think brainwashing is. They don't know what brainwashing is. They don't even know how brainwashing even come about. That's the beauty of brainwashing. You know, brainwashing is not something where where you know you're getting brainwashed. That's not how brainwashing works. People that don't have a thought, don't have a mind, don't think for themselves, you can easily be a victim to brainwashing because you don't think for yourself. Anybody that don't think for themselves can be brainwashed. So if you look at the culture and you look at what we're doing today and what type of music we're promoting, it's a direct reflection of who we are as a people. Yet we don't want anybody to call us out on it. But you can't have it both ways. We're in trouble as a community. A lot of things have to change. We have to stop supporting the nonsense, and we got to change the culture. And you ain't gonna change the culture if things that create culture don't change. Music creates culture. If you don't change the music, you don't change the culture. Especially black people, because we love music. And if you can't get us to stop doing this and making this, then we done. We can't blame the record labels because they only promote this type of music or they only want to sign these type of artists. They just doing business. They don't care about the things you care about. They just doing business. If you want things to change, then those rappers got to be taken off the throne. And the only way you're going to do that is by not buying the records. That's it. So you think about everything I just said here, and you will understand what's going on. Don't just listen to me. Go and do your own research and see what you come up with. That's all I got to tell you. Y'all take care.